Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode I am going to be taking you through step by step another very important skill that you need as a competitive Warhammer player. We are going to be talking all about the art of staging. And so without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge right into today's episode. ACHTUNG conscripts! Warlord Games is now an official sponsor of the Mordian Glory channel. And not only that, they have given me an affiliate link which I have popped down in the description below. By using that link, you can get your hands on some awesome World War II bolt action miniatures and at the same time support the Mordian Glory channel. You have all of my ideas, so what are you waiting for? Do the right thing and buy yourself some bolt action today. So in a recent video, I talked about screening and how it is an effective counter to a lot of assault armies. And if you've not seen that video, then I'll make sure there's a link down in the description below. But today we are going to be looking at the other side of the coin. We are going to the other end of the spectrum and we are going to be looking at staging. Now, staging is almost the exact opposite of screening. Whereas screening is about stopping the enemy from getting in amongst you and screwing you over and destroying your high value assets, staging is all about setting up those attacks so that they are as effective as possible and can try and overwhelm and counter the enemy's screening. Staging is an incredibly important skill for assault armies and assault tactics to be effective. Without it, you will find that your assaults either bounce off enemy units or end up just losing steam and wasting their power against a bunch of sacrificial chaff. And in an absolute worst case scenario, you may find that without staging, you never even get to attack the enemy. You just charge forward and get gunned down before you can even make the charge. As with the screening video, I'm going to be using a bunch of examples to show staging rather than just telling you about it. And our first example here is what it looks like when you don't use staging. Here we have a unit of Gene Stealers who are trying to charge down an Imperial Guard squad with a supporting tank. Now, as you can see, the Gene Stealers in this scenario, they have moved out and they have started getting close to the guard lines, but they are just sat out in the open. They've just charged forward blindly, trying to get to grips with the enemy as quickly as possible. And the end result is they haven't made their charge, and now the guard get to just gun them down before they even get a chance to roll those charge dice. As a result, you've just lost, if you're the attacking player, you've just lost over 100, 150 points worth of models and you have done no damage to the enemy. How can you avoid this from happening? Well, this is where staging comes in. In its most basic form, staging is setting yourself up so you can make those charges effectively. And the best way of doing that is by making use of terrain. So now in our second example, we have got this same guard force and we have got the same Tyranid force, but now rather than just boiling out into the open, trying to close the distance as much as possible, we have moved up. Maybe we've not even moved our full distance, but we've just moved up behind the wall. This now means that when we've done this move, when it comes over to the guard's turn, if they want to shoot us, they have to try and move round the side of this wall if they can even get that angle that they want at all. And if they do end up moving around, then guess what? They're moving closer to us. And regardless, they're not going to be able to get anywhere near the volume of fire that they want. Maybe just a few guardsmen around the sides. And that fire is not going to be effective enough to then stop us from boiling out in our next turn and charging them down. So a good example here is there's an objective right in the middle. We haven't moved onto the objective blindly because we know that if we had just moved on to the objective, we'd die. So we just move behind the ruin. We're patient. That's the big thing about staging. It requires patience. It requires the knowledge and the experience to know when it's go time. So here we have our objective. in our turn, we've just moved up to here with our Tyranids. Then we pass over to the guard. The guard go, okay, we're going to move on to this objective now. No problem whatsoever. But we haven't really got any effective targets for shooting. But we've moved on to the objective. It goes back over the Tyranids. And now we can launch our assault. And we can move out and then charge in. And we'll just move a handful of these Gene Stealers to represent this. We can move out and we can charge in. And then we can destroy those guardsmen, pile in to the Leman Russ, and we have taken out one enemy asset. We've started tying up another one, and we have also secured an objective. That is a best case scenario for how one unit can do a local stage and then launch its attack, overwhelming an enemy screen and essentially beating the shooting army in its screening game. But I know what you're thinking. Mordian Glory, that's a very idealized scenario. What if the shooting army, represented by these guard models, doesn't move forward onto the objective? Well, guess what? That's a win-win for you. Because if the, in this case, guard player doesn't move onto the objective, then what will happen is he just gives up any chance of him getting those points. And that means that when it comes over to your turn, because you've staged effectively, you can still move out, and it might be a slightly longer charge, but you can still move out and get the charge off. And the worst bit for the guard player in this scenario is he hasn't even taken the ground effectively. What's happened is he hasn't moved up. You've still been able to move out with a fast-moving unit, fast-moving assault unit, and destroyed that guard unit, tied up that tank, and he now is in no position on that objective. So you've gained ground. And if you get into the next scenario, where let's say that the guard player has his tank here, and then he just moves up his infantry, but he leaves his tank behind, then this creates a bit of an interesting choice for you. In this scenario, what you can do is charge out and destroy the guard unit. You won't get to tie up the exterminator, but again, you have denied the enemy the chance to get those points. However, of course, if all of these guardsmen die and your Tyranids are now exposed out in the middle of the board, you are now at risk of being counter-attacked, being counter-shot off the board by this Leman Russ, by this supporting shooter unit. And this is where the next part of staging comes in, the advanced part, which is the multiple attack waves. So in that example we just went through, the Tyranids charged into the guardsmen with some Gene Stealers, killed the guardsmen, but then ended up getting gunned down in the process. That wasn't a good trade for the Tyranids. We lost about 150 points worth of stuff, and the guardsmen only lost about 60 points of stuff. If we keep playing the game like that, we're going to run out of points well before the guard do, and we're going to lose the game. This is where, like with screening, you need some cheaper units that can sometimes go in as the first wave to get rid of the enemy's fragile, sacrificial speed bump screens. And in this example, we're going to use some Hormagaunts. So now what we're going to do is, rather than sending the Gene Stealers, we'll charge in our unit of Hormagaunts, which are only about 60-ish points for each 10. That's in a similar ballpark to those guardsmen. And now, when these Hormagaunts go in, they're going to do enough damage. They're probably going to do enough damage to take out most, if not all, of these guardsmen. Now we know that all of these Hormagaunts are going to die. Because if this thing can kill 10 Gene Stealers, it can kill 10 Hormagaunts. So these Hormagaunts then die. But then, in the next turn, the guard player is in the same position that he was. Does he move forward now with his tank to try and take the objective? At which point he's giving the Gene Stealers a easy target to go in there and destroy or tie up that Leman Russ, or does he stay back? At which point completely giving up any chance to score the primary or maybe some secondary points, depending on what secondary cards you draw from this objective. This kind of multiple attack wave generates dilemmas for your opponent, for the shooting army. And as we said in the screening video, you want to create dilemmas for your opponent. If you give your opponent a problem, well, problems have solutions, but dilemmas have got no good choice. And in this scenario, we are creating a dilemma. However, one thing that eagle-eyed observers may have noticed is that a lot of what we've been talking about so far has been both sides sort of attacking and counter-attacking on this objective, but no one really getting the chance to hold it. This is where another kind of staging comes in, another way of doing it comes in, and this is where you have the go turn. Now, a lot of competitive players will talk about the go turn. You need to know what time, when it is right to just go all in and to deliver a huge attack to the opponent. The go turn is less about having multiple waves, although you can have multiple go turns. The go turn is about delivering an overwhelming attack to the enemy and allowing yourself to deliver a big blow, to put a lot of units into your opponent's face, to maybe give them too many units that they can handle, so that then you can continue the momentum, continue the attack into future turns. So a good example of a go turn would be, rather than just moving out with the Hormagaunts, what we do is we move out with everyone. Okay, let's say we attack with these Hormagaunts in here, and then we also go in with the Gene Stealers as well. Because we're just getting everyone in there. We move forward with all of them. Big old flying column of these chitinous scuttling bastards. Just get them in there. And then, screw it, why not? Let's deep strike a goddamn Trigon in here as well. Just huge target over saturation. Now we are going to sweep these guys in a way. That's not going to. I don't think that's going to be in contention here. And we might even start tying up this tank as well. Now there could be lots of other guard units that are behind the lines here. Maybe there's a Chimera rolling up. Maybe we've got a Hellhound rolling up. And the idea with this kind of go turn is we tie this unit up. The enemy, falls back with that tank. They send in these. Maybe they clear away a whole bunch of the Hormagaunts. They clear away a whole bunch of the Gene Stealers as well. So we've taken a lot of casualties. But look, we have retained control of this objective. And now, we can send our own big things in. We can send our next waves in here. We can send in the remnants of this first go turn in. Keep the attack going, keep the momentum going, and coming up from behind, we might have another wave here. So it's not, sometimes when you do staging, it's not about just attacking onto an objective. It can be about attacking onto and then beyond that objective. Keeping the enemy busy. So now, if we look at this scenario, let's say this is our second wave coming in here. So now the problem for the guard player is, even if they, clear all this stuff away, guess what? That's a second turn where we've held that objective. That's 2 potential lots of primary points. That's 2 opportunities to score things like extend battle lines and secure no man's land, to do, if it's a middle objective, do like establish locus and all that kind of good stuff. And we're just keeping that momentum on, and we can send these guys in, and it might not be until, turn 4 when the guard finally clear all this stuff away, kill all of these Tyranids, and they have like maybe a turn or 2 to score primary. And in the meantime, the Tyranids have been scoring primary, we've been scoring secondary, we've just been putting pressure onto the enemy. Staging is an important part of having a pressure list, of having an assault list, and it's an important part of trying to overwhelm these enemy screens. Now, go turns are, in my experience, are very high risk, high reward. Because if you judge it right, and your go turn is effective, and it's able to keep the enemy back, and you're essentially keeping people pushed into their deployment zone, maybe you're doing you're trying to do sort of deployment zone jail for them, then it can work. The problem with go turns, though, is it exposes a large amount of your force. A really large amount of your force. And if you go in there and your opponent gets hit hard, but they're able to hit back even harder, and they can clear away your initial attack very easily, then you may find that you lose a huge amount of models and you don't gain as many points from it. Sometimes the most effective way of dealing with a go turn is just unrepentant, undiluted, pure damage output and firepower. And if you can clear the offensive army quickly, it can actually almost boomerang the go turn back into the attacking army and cause them to start struggling a little bit. Up until this point, a lot of the attacking and assaulting that we've been looking at has been using armies which have got access to cheap disposable units. But not every assault army does. In fact, some of the most successful ones don't use quantity to overwhelm their opponent, they use quality. Good examples of this are Blood Angels, and you've got Custodes, you've got World Eaters with like 8 bound and stuff. So you can absolutely have a go turn without having to have numerical superiority. You just need to have something that is dead hard. Something that can go in there, smash the opponent, and then take the return firepower, and then it is its own second go turn. And a really good example of that at the moment in the current meta is Dark Angels Deathwing Knights. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any Deathwing Knights, but I do have a whole bunch of Death Guard Terminators, which can kind of represent the same thing. Now, in this scenario here, we're pushing forward with our go-to, with a high-quality assault unit, and we're going to move forward, and then we're going to charge into this screen of guardsmen. And we're going to kill them all. And then we're going to end up being stuck out in the middle. Okay, so we kill the guardsman. Let's say, for the sake of argument, you know, we're too far away to pile in, or maybe I want to not pile in so I can stay on the objective. But we've had our go turn. We've smashed the guardsman, and now we have a unit here where even if this Chimera, this Lehman Russ, this Hellhound fire in, maybe we'll take some casualties. You know, maybe we'll lose like 40% of the squad, but there's still so much left here that we don't need a second wave. This is the same wave that comes in and just starts hammering onto the opponent. It just starts keeping the attack going, keeping the momentum going. And by the time, you know, maybe it'll take 2 or 3 turns, probably 2 turns in a pretty lethal guard army, but maybe it'll take 2 or 3 turns. But by the time the enemy has, the shooting army has cleared through those Terminators, again, this objective has been, let's say it's just been firmly under the control of the Death Guard, of the high quality assaulting army, and we've just been rocking those primary points, rocking those secondary points. So even if you're an army which doesn't have multiple waves for multiple go turns, you can actually have one effective go turn which then snowballs and can keep the momentum going. I recently played a game in a tournament versus a Deathwing Gladius army, which is very, very powerful at the time of recording. It'd be funny if we look back in 6 months and it's no longer that good, but for the sake of this argument, it's very, very powerful at the moment. And my opponent just took 15 Deathwing Knights and he rammed them into my face. And even at the end of the game, these guys attacked me for turn 3, turn 4, turn 5. Even at the end of the game, there was still some Deathwing Knights over because these guys were just so durable. And my opponent, he only had like 1 go turn when all of this hit me in like 1 go, but he just kept that momentum going and it was highly effective. Now there's one last bit about staging that I want to talk about, and that is the role of dedicated transports. Dedicated transports can be an incredible tool in the staging toolbox. Consider the following scenario. We've got a couple of units here hiding behind this wall, staging effectively. The problem is that our opponent has brought some indirect fire. Now this indirect fire can spend a couple of turns, whilst you're setting yourself up, turn 1, turn 2, ready for your turn 3 go. This artillery can just start pounding into you. And if it's something like a basilisk, which can slow you down, even if it's going after units it's not that good into, like Terminators, it'll slow them down so that they'll just fail their charge and then just get gunned down before they can do anything. Or it can go into MEQ units, and it'll have no problem, destroying Marines and their equivalent. This is where transports come in. So let's put these guys to one side for a moment. And rather than just having them deployed behind the wall, instead, what we're going to do is start them off in a transport and then drive them up to the wall. Now, this transport is now a part of our staging, because not only does it mean that if someone does try and artillery bombardment our guys, they're now safe inside the transport, because the transport's almost entirely sacrificial, right? It's just there to get people from A to B. It's a battle taxi. But not only is it protecting us from that, but on top of that, it can make our staging way more effective, because when we disembark from a transport, we can disembark 3 inches and then move, provided that the transport hasn't moved itself. So rather than, let's say, getting at, if we were ready to launch our assault and we didn't have a transport, we moved from here to here. Now, because we get the extra 3 inches, we'll be more like here, and that makes the charge all the more possible, all the less risky, makes it much more reliable. And so using transports can be a great way of getting extra movement, which can make it possible for you to do staging. And sometimes that can be very helpful because it just, like I said, makes the charge easier. But sometimes you'll find terrain isn't always going to be set up in the perfect place for you. And it might be where this is a little bit further back, right? And it's like, well, I need to make sure that I'm at least threatening that objective. Well, getting that extra 3 inches of movement from the disembark, that can make that possible. So transports are a very, very important part of that. And another thing that you might want to take into account is not just cheap transports like rhinos, but let's say that this wall isn't here. Let's say that we've just got an objective that's out in open ground. Sometimes you don't want a rhino. Sometimes you need something which, it's almost like a distraction card effect. It's almost like you're bringing the cover with you. Take a Land Raider like this, for example, putting your Terminators in it, drive, maybe you've got a bit of cover behind your deployment, your deployments in here. You drive out your deployment zone, and you're like, boom, I'm on this objective. Now here, we're staged, because you know what? If our opponent doesn't destroy this and everything inside it, do you know what we're going to do next? We're going to jump out. We're going to have our go turn. We're going to jump out with our Terminators, and we're going to start crashing into the enemy lines. So you can use transports not only to stage behind terrain, but you can almost use them as sort of mobile staging points to get yourself set up, get yourself ready, and then get yourself staged, and then have your go turn. Now that just about covers all of the basics and some of the different types of staging and preparation you can do to launch an attack in Warhammer 40k. But I will admit that I am more of a shooty player than I am an attacking player. And I've only recently started, sort of experiencing and learning and practicing staging. So if there's anything that you think that I've missed or anything that you think I've got wrong, let me know down in that comment section. Don't worry, I can take the criticism. I've got a thick skin, and I want this video to be sort of a starting point, but I would want the comment section to hopefully be a really good resource for anyone that watches this video, because they can check that, and between this video and between the comment section, hopefully there'll be lots of really, really useful information for players that are learning 40k and learning about these advanced tactics like screening and staging. So in advance, I want to say a huge thank you to everyone that does comment on this video, and I look forward to reading all of your insights and all of your feedback. I also want to say a massive thank you to everyone that's gone ahead and smashed the like button, and if you haven't pressed the like button, please consider doing so. I know it's a little cringe asking for likes, but trust me, it is such a good way of supporting the channel. It really boosts this video with the all-knowing yet mysterious YouTube algorithm. And if you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more stuff like this, then don't forget to subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier patrons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.